We are shown a flashback of Princess Miko when she was a little girl. She is seen in a very large flower field, a place she used to visit with her mother. Then suddenly, a sound is heard behind Princess Miko, and she immediately becomes aware of it and looks back. It turns out the sound was a memory from when Princess Miko was little, where she was playing with her mother and making a crown out of flowers. As a child, Princess Miko looked very happy and very close to her mother. That moment makes Princess Miko slightly realize that all of this is just a dream. Little Princess Miko is also seen giving her mother a 4-leaf clover, something she did because she loved her mother very much, with the flower serving as a symbol and a prayer for her mother's eternal happiness. Little Princess Miko then hugs her mother, accompanied by a scene showing a paper with 2 4-leaf clovers, where it is further explained that when Princess Miko returns to the castle, they will make it into a bookmark. It turns out they did this because Princess Miko and her mother loved reading books. Besides that, she said now she can always be with Ayame. Princess Miko wept because she was so happy to see her mother smile again, but unfortunately, there was something that felt a bit off. The thing that felt off was that she could no longer see her mother's smile in person, and she also couldn't hear her mother's voice. So Princess Miko felt a sense of emptiness and confusion regarding her strange memories. The scene shifts back to a room where Princess Miko and her mother are sleeping. Princess Miko sees her mother suddenly wake up crying over something. It turns out Princess Miko's mother was crying because she didn't want to die. Her mother repeated that sentence over and over. Little Princess Miko, who appeared to have just woken up, was also confused about what was happening to her mother as she cried without cause, and Little Princess Miko even thought her mother was sick. The mother, unable to bear seeing Little Princess Miko cry, immediately turned and hugged her. That touching moment lasted for a while. Princess Miko, who watched the touching moment, just stood silently, without expression. She thought that at the time, she didn't know what her mother was actually afraid of, but in her current position, Princess Miko finally understands what her mother felt back then. The scene then shifts to the moment when Princess Miko's younger sister, Ayame, was born. Little Princess Miko looked very happy with Ayame's birth, and she also saw that little Ayame was very cute. Little Princess Miko tried to talk to her sister by introducing herself as her older sister. Little Princess Miko also said that from now on, as her sister, she would protect Ayame well. Little Princess Miko also told her mother that she would do her best as a big sister. However, unfortunately, Princess Miko cannot remember the conversation with her mother back then, and even her face is blurred in Princess Miko's memory. All Princess Miko knows is that her mother smiled and said, "As a big sister, protect Ayame and stay with her as family." But after the incident that killed her mother, Princess Miko promised to protect Ayame seriously, until finally she was officially appointed as Princess Miko. The scene then shows a bright light appearing around Onijima Island. Princess Miko finally learns about the true role of the Princess Miko, the important role for this country, and how heavy the burden that must be borne by a Princess Miko. Princess Miko thinks to herself that she actually just wants to run away and throw everything away. But if she runs, not only Onijima, but the whole world will be destroyed. And one thing is certain, the next Miko successor will definitely be her own sister, Ayame. She will be forced to bear this immense burden. Princess Miko cannot let this bad sequence of events just happen. She vows she will not allow it. The scene then shifts to the bedroom again, where Light, Gold, and Nemumu have been there for a while. The three of them greet Princess Miko Yotsuha and ask if she was having a nightmare. Princess Miko, who is startled because there are other people in her room, wakes up immediately. She looks toward her sister, who is still drooling. Princess Miko asks, "Are you from the Black Clown? And what exactly are you doing here?" Princess Miko cheekily says that perhaps they are enchanted by Princess Miko and secretly snuck in at night. Princess Miko tries to kick them out of her room right then and there. Light also cheekily replies that Princess Miko is right and immediately apologizes for entering her room without permission. Light explains that he came here because there was a possibility of a kidnapping attempt against Princess Miko and he wanted to resolve it as quickly as possible. Light informs Princess Miko that her sister has been put into a deep sleep by their magic and won't wake up. And Light continues by saying that the room is now soundproof, so even if there's a loud noise, it won't be heard outside. So, please speak without worrying about anyone eavesdropping. Princess Miko says that Light is too kind, but hearing that, Light explains that he can promise his arrival was not to harm Princess Miko or her sister. Light explains that he had fought the Kamijo family guards and managed to escape, finally arriving here. Light says if Princess Miko and her sister are being kidnapped, they can help them escape. However, Light adds, but are you truly being kidnapped? Light continues by saying, if this incident is a trap, then Light will report it to the Adventurers Guild that the country of Onijima made a false request. Hearing that threat, Princess Miko thinks silently, looking like someone listening to this storyline. Okay, continuing. Princess Miko formally apologizes for causing trouble for Light's team because of that request. Princess Miko says because they managed to escape that Kamijo family trap, she thinks that it seems Light did not use Princess Miko's name as a shield. Princess Miko finally explains everything in detail now, starting from how this is something not yet known to the public, but will be presented at the upcoming 9-country meeting. So, as the leader of Onijima, Princess Miko will soon return to meet the others from the island to hold discussions before that meeting is held. Princess Miko tells Light and his team that the reason they were asked to accompany her is partly due to the Adventurers Guild and partly because of Princess Miko's reason. She planned this fake kidnapping so that people would no longer focus on Princess Miko and her sister. But what was unexpected was that Princess Miko did not think the Kamijo clan would go this far by attacking Light and his team. Once again, Princess Miko sincerely apologizes. Light finally speaks up, saying that it was all just a pretense, right? Light asks again why a princess needs all of this. Princess Miko pauses for a moment and sighs. She explains that it is all because if Princess Miko and Ayame disappeared due to being kidnapped, Princess Miko hopes the whole country would be confused by all of it. Princess Miko also thinks if the magician from the giant tower, meaning Eli, boys, comes to this island, then Princess Miko can move easily. Light, hearing that reason, becomes shocked. Light is seen pondering while looking at Princess Miko. In his head, he is constantly turning over the decisions that must be made to overcome the chaos on the island. The problem gets more complicated because Princess Miko is also feeling deeply troubled, making Light even more confused about where to start. Any wrong step could make the situation even more destructive. Light is still thinking about why Princess Miko mentioned the name Eli, the magician from the giant tower. It feels strange, because Light had indeed directed Eli to prepare to topple the Onijima Islands, but had never heard that she had a relationship with Yotsuha. That thought keeps spinning in his head like a puzzle that hasn't found its final piece. Meanwhile, Princess Miko looks calm on the outside, but her face clearly shows a heavy burden. She sits before Light and begins to speak seriously. She admits that all of this must be confusing, and because all these problems are her fault, she will honestly tell the truth, but asks Light not to spread the secret to anyone because it concerns the state secrets of the Onijima Islands. Princess Miko then starts to open the story with a simple question about the myth of the creation of the Onijima Islands. Light just answers vaguely, because all he knows is the general version heard by most people. According to Light, the myth is just a classic story about a god who went berserk and a holy princess who sealed him to save the island. Light continues by explaining that the myth is a story about a god who went berserk, devoured the island, and then became one with the holy princess who finally sealed him. After that, the holy princess and her followers created the Onijima Islands as they are now. For Light, it is just a stale, long-past fairy tale, but Princess Miko has a different expression. Princess Miko, with a serious tone, says that the myth is not just a fairy tale, but a real event that actually happened. Light is slightly shocked, then confirms if what Princess Miko means is that the god actually exists and is sealed somewhere. Princess Miko nods slowly, confirming everything without hesitation. Princess Miko explains further that Ogre Mountain, the mountain that is the symbol of Onijima, has a large swamp at its peak. That is where the first holy princess sealed the god who, it is said, could destroy the entire world if it were to awaken. That sentence alone is enough to make the atmosphere tense. Since its founding, the main goal of the Onijima Islands has actually only been one: to destroy that god. For that reason, their soldiers always focus on honing their fighting, martial arts, and magic skills to prepare themselves in case the seal one day breaks. So their hard training is not just a tradition, but a world defense legacy. Princess Miko continues by saying that in the past, the people of Onijima believed all tribes were required to train to gain power, but they also had other, darker plans to weaken the god. Plans that involved human sacrifice, and not just anyone, but serious criminals. Princess Miko says that criminals sentenced to death were made into live sacrifices. Their bodies were carved with mantras that functioned to weaken the god, and then they were sacrificed directly into the seal. Light is shocked to hear that, but Princess Miko just sighs deeply and says that all of it turned out not to be enough. Princess Miko continues with a gloomy face that because the sacrifice was still not enough, the holy princess herself finally decided to be sacrificed as well. She and her successors were carved with the same mantras, making them living sacrifices to keep the balance of the seal so the god remains asleep. Princess Miko says that if the god were to wake up, not only would the Onijima Islands be destroyed, but the whole world would also disappear. All the rituals and sacrifices for centuries were done to prevent that from happening, albeit at a very high price. Generation after generation of holy princesses, after giving birth to their successors, always offered themselves as sacrifices to weaken the god. That sacrifice has become a sacred tradition that cannot be broken, and has even been considered a fate that must be lived by every successor of the holy princess line without exception. Princess Miko says that the power of the holy princesses is indeed great, but all of that is the result of the sacrifice of their lineage. Thanks to that, the god has been successfully weakened for thousands of years. However, Princess Miko realizes that if things continue like this, they are only delaying disaster. One day, Onijima must be able to defeat that god completely. While looking down, Princess Miko starts to cry. Her hands grip her own arms, her body trembling with fear. In her sobs, Princess Miko admits that she doesn't want to be the next sacrifice. Her face is pale. It is clearly visible that she is truly afraid of the fate awaiting her. Princess Miko then looks at her younger sister, who is asleep near her. She says that she has sworn to her mother to protect her sister at any cost. She also will not let her sister experience the same fate as the previous holy princesses who were sacrificed. Because of that determination, Princess Miko decided to study abroad, specifically at the Principalitas Magic Academy, the place where the most advanced magical knowledge is gathered. There, Princess Miko tried to find a way to defeat the god or at least seal him forever without any more sacrifices. But all of Princess Miko's efforts were in vain. Even though she has expended energy, time, and thought, the result is zero. Princess Miko feels confused, lost, and starts to despair because she didn't find a single solution that could save Onijima from the curse of sacrifice. However, in the midst of her despair, a glimmer of hope appeared. Princess Miko smiles slightly while saying that a ray of light appeared in the midst of that darkness, something that came unexpectedly but felt like a savior. That hope came in the form of someone known throughout the world. Princess Miko says that hope is none other than the Great Tower Magician, a phenomenal human figure capable of conquering one country after another, including the Elf Kingdom, Dark Elf Island, and even the Beast Folk Federation. That person is known for their extraordinary power and almost inconceivable intelligence. Princess Miko is sure that the Great Tower Magician might be able to defeat the god, or at least knows how to seal him forever without needing any more human lives. Because of that, Princess Miko immediately took action to contact that magician, hoping a miracle could come from there. Light, Nemumu, and Gold can only stare in disbelief hearing the story. Princess Miko says that one of her personal guards, Oboro, claimed to have a way to contact the Great Tower Magician. So, Princess Miko gave all the research results she had collected about the god to Oboro so it could be passed directly to the magician for research. Not long after, Princess Miko received a reply from Oboro. The letter said that there was a high possibility of sealing the god permanently. Upon reading that letter, Princess Miko cried in her room. It felt like a burden of years finally found a real way out. Princess Miko continues the story that her mother died in a strange accident, and because of that, she suddenly had to ascend the throne as the Holy Princess. Since that day, the fear of death has continued to haunt her. Every night, she cannot sleep peacefully because she knows her time is getting closer to becoming a sacrifice. Besides that fear, there is also an emptiness in her heart. Princess Miko knows that her most beloved sister could end up being sacrificed too. That thought destroys her from within, and when she knew there was a possibility to change that fate, her happiness could not be explained in words. Princess Miko says that after all that suffering, it feels impossible not to feel happy when knowing the bleak future can be avoided. But even so, she realizes she cannot just ask for the Great Tower Magician's help to come to the island. As the head of the Onijima Islands, Princess Miko knows her position is complicated. She cannot arbitrarily meet a figure as strong and famous as the Great Tower Magician without the approval of the ruling clan. That is where a big problem begins to emerge, namely the problem named the Kamijo clan. Princess Miko says that the Kamijo clan is the clan responsible for running the government of the Onijima Islands. They have great influence and surely wouldn't agree if the Great Tower Magician were invited to come there, because for them, it would look like a sign of weakness. If Onijima formally invited that magician, other nations might think that they are afraid of the Great Tower Magician's power. The Kamijo clan would look like a government incapable of handling its own country's problems, and that would lower their prestige in the eyes of the world. Even worse, if the secret about the existence of the god were leaked, the impact would be chaotic. Other countries could immediately react in dangerous ways, especially after knowing that the Onijima Islands have been hiding an entity that could destroy the world for hundreds of years. That's why the Kamijo clan will never allow that secret to leak, because it could destroy their position as rulers entirely. But Princess Miko and her allies, the Shimobashira clan, did not stand idly by. They decided to take action themselves without official permission. Princess Miko explains that the Shimobashira clan is a clan whose duty is to serve the holy princesses and organize important events. But now their position has been underestimated by the Kamijo clan, even though previously the two clans were equal. As a result, hatred and hostility emerged between the two clans. Princess Miko took advantage of that condition. In a secret meeting with Oboro and the head of the Shimobashira clan, they made a big plan, creating a fake kidnapping incident so the Kamijo clan would be in chaos, then using that moment to summon the Great Tower Magician to come to the island and seal the god forever. The plan proceeded secretly, and from a distance, the silhouette of the Great Tower Magician could already be seen in the sky of Onijima Island, a sign that everything was starting to move according to plan. Princess Miko remained calm, even though she knew the risks were great. Princess Miko realizes that the Kamijo clan will be very angry once they know the truth, but she is ready to take full responsibility. She is sure that if she succeeds in sealing the god, everyone will understand and finally support her actions. For Princess Miko, this victory will be hers. Of course, the Great Tower Magician would not do that for free. In return, she asks for a large payment from the Onijima Islands. But Princess Miko's determination is firm. If it can make the god sealed forever, she is willing to do anything to persuade the Kamijo clan to pay whatever is requested. With an unshakable spirit, Princess Miko says that the fake kidnapping she created is not just a reckless action, but a final step that must be taken. She cannot back down now, because everything has gone too far to turn back. At the end of the story, Princess Miko stands tall with a serious gaze. Behind her appears a faint silhouette of the god who is still sealed behind the mountain. With full confidence, Princess Miko vows in her heart that whatever happens, she will ensure the Great Tower Magician seals that god for eternity. That night, the sky looked clear. The full moon hung brightly above the Onijima Islands. The atmosphere looked calm, but in reality, it was tense. A slow narration explains that the kidnapping that occurred was actually fake. The purpose of that incident was not about victims, but to create chaos in Onijima so it would be easier for the Great Tower magician, Eli, to seal the god residing in that place. Inside the room, Light, Nemumu, and Gold are still standing before Princess Miko Yotsuha and her sister, who is still asleep. The room is quiet, filled only by a faint magical aura. Through telepathy, Light asks Nemumu and Gold if they have ever heard anything from Eli about the plan to seal the god. Both just look at each other and then shake their heads, indicating they know nothing. Light thought hard, trying to find the logic behind it all. According to him, it makes no sense that Eli would forget to tell Yotsuha about something this important. As the holy princess, Yotsuha should be the first person to know. From there, Light begins to suspect something deeper. The possibility that Yotsuha has actually been deceived by Oboro and the Shimobashira clan, who have hidden interests behind this chaos. Light then thanks Yotsuha for explaining the situation. In a calm and polite tone, Light decides to speak openly in return for the princess's sincerity. Light explains that his group, the Black Motley, has a close relationship with the Great Tower magician and often speaks directly to her. But all this time, never once has Eli mentioned anything about sealing a god. Hearing that, Yotsuha immediately stares at Light with a shocked expression. However, she quickly smiles slightly and tries to calm herself. Yotsuha explains that her reason for sharing this secret was only to show sincerity and apologize for the chaos that had occurred, not to leak state secrets to just anyone. According to her, a wise person like Eli would certainly never reveal something that important to ordinary adventurers. Light responds logically. He says that if Eli really intended to seal a god that powerful, there would definitely be signs of major preparation. The Great Tower could not just stay still, because an operation of that magnitude cannot be done in secret. But so far, there are no signs of the tower's troops preparing or any major movements happening. Everything looks normal as usual. Light adds that even for a sealing at the level of a god, Eli would definitely need the help of many people, not acting alone. He also recalls that the Great Tower's dragons, which are usually used for transportation, are still busy patrolling and helping with construction, not being prepared for a major journey. So according to Light, there is not the slightest evidence that such a major sealing is actually being prepared. That statement makes Yotsuha shocked. Then she grits her teeth. Her face turns red with anger. Suddenly, she stands up and shouts loudly, accusing Light of spreading lies. Her anger explodes. She feels Light has insulted the secret agreement between the Holy Princess of the Onijima Islands and the Great Tower magician. In her anger, Yotsuha even threatens that Light deserves the death penalty because of that statement. Yotsuha then points at Light and the others with a sharp gaze, calling them low-class humans who dare to challenge holy authority. She vows to report all of Light's words to the Great Tower magician and hopes that Eli herself will impose a severe punishment. The room is immediately filled with magical pressure from the Holy Princess's anger. Light remains calm in facing that emotional outburst. With a patient tone, Light asks Yotsuha to calm herself down. But Yotsuha instead replies with insults, telling Light to know his place, as if Light is not worthy of speaking about someone as great as Eli. The tension is increasingly felt, yet Light maintains his flat and cold expression. Light then looks at Yotsuha and says that continuing the argument without Eli's presence is useless. While remaining calm, Light offers a solution so that the problem is resolved directly before the Great Tower magician herself. Yotsuha, who hears that offer, immediately becomes confused and asks what he means. Light then explains that Eli once gave him a teleportation item to be used in an emergency. Therefore, Light can immediately teleport them all to the Great Tower to ask for a direct explanation from Eli about the truth of the god's sealing. After hearing that, the room suddenly goes silent, leaving a shocked look from Yotsuha, who cannot yet confirm whether Light is truly serious or just bluffing. Princess Miko Yotsuha, who was initially still angry, stares at Light with a cynical tone while sighing deeply. She does not believe Light's words, claiming to have a teleportation item to the Great Tower. According to her, there is no magic in this world that can instantly move them that far from the Onijima Islands. Yotsuha considers Light's words to be just silly nonsense to deceive the situation. However, before Yotsuha can continue her anger, Light immediately lifts the item in his hand and activates it calmly. Instantly, a bright light envelops the entire room. The energy is so strong that the wind around them spins wildly. In an instant, everyone's bodies, including Yotsuha and her sister, are covered in dense white light. Yotsuha stares at Light with a shocked expression and mutters quietly, unable to believe what has just happened. Once the light subsides, the sight that appears leaves everyone stunned. They are now standing under the night sky with a large, bright full moon. In the air, dozens of giant dragons float with shimmering wings, creating a magnificent sight that cannot be denied. Yotsuha freezes in place, her eyes widened, unable to say anything because of the shock. Not far from there, the great tower looms high, illuminated by the moonlight shining on its surface. A large dragon passes in front of the tower, emitting an aura that is both terrifying and beautiful. Yotsuha can only stand frozen with her mouth open, her eyes trembling as she looks at that extraordinary sight, as if her brain needs time to accept the reality that they are truly at the great tower. In confusion, Yotsuha mutters quietly, asking herself if all of this is a dream. She rubs her eyes several times while looking at her sister, Ayame, who is strangely still sleeping soundly on the floor as if nothing happened. That situation makes the scene even more absurd because only Ayame looks calm in the midst of everyone's astonishment. Meanwhile, Light has sent a message via telepathy to someone. With a calm tone, Light apologizes for disturbing her in the middle of the night. From a distance, the soft voice of Eli is heard answering kindly, mentioning Light with full respect and greeting him with warmth. That voice sounds calm but strong, indicating Eli has realized their presence. Light then explains to Eli that he has a small request that needs to be conveyed directly. Eli answers with an enthusiastic and slightly joking tone, saying that she is always ready to welcome Light whenever he comes, even at this late hour, because to Eli, Light is no ordinary guest. That answer makes the atmosphere around them feel lighter, even though everyone is still stunned. Yotsuha, who is still confused, starts looking around with a blank stare. She mutters quietly that the object Light used earlier was not an illusion or a magic trick. The disbelief on her face slowly turns into pure shock. In her heart, Yotsuha realizes that they truly teleported to the Great Tower. All the evidence before her eyes is too real to be denied. A few moments later, someone appears near the tower gate with a calm but authoritative aura. That figure welcomes them with a polite tone, saying that the arrival of Light's group has been welcomed well. Yotsuha, who is still dazed, just stares without being able to react, while Nemumu and Gold remain on guard behind Light. At the top of the Great Tower, the silhouette of a woman is seen under the full moon. Her voice sounds soft but authoritative, saying that even though the visit came suddenly in the middle of the night, she is still happy to receive anyone who comes with the black motley. That voice makes everyone immediately know who the figure is that is speaking. Then, from behind the moonlight, Eli's face appears with a wide smile and charisma that immediately dominates the atmosphere. Kindly, Eli welcomes them all to the Great Tower, introducing herself as the magician. That sight makes Yotsuha even more shocked, because she finally truly sees the figure who has only been mentioned in legends. Outside the Great Tower, the night breeze blows softly. Yotsuha walks slowly toward Eli with a face still mixed with awe and disbelief. Her lips tremble slightly while muttering the name of the Great Tower magician. However, before the atmosphere gets more serious, a small voice breaks the silence. Ayame, who is still asleep, suddenly mutters quietly, asking for food because she is hungry. Everyone immediately turns toward Ayame, who is still snoring with a peaceful face. Gold comments with an amazed tone, feeling strange that the girl could remain sleeping soundly in this absurd situation. He even mentions that Ayame is truly unique for being able to stay calm in the midst of such chaos. Yotsuha looks at her sister while sighing resignedly. In her sleep, Ayame continues her sleep talking, asking for a large onigiri filled with okaka, complete with details as if she were ordering real food. That sight closes the tension of that night with a ridiculous atmosphere, but for some reason, It makes everything feel more human in the midst of the absurdity that just occurred. This chapter opens with the beauty of the full moon hanging directly above the high tower structure created by Eli. In the midst of that silent atmosphere, that person thinks about whether it is necessary to move everyone into a room because the place is too open. In the next moment, the atmosphere immediately shifts to a luxurious, classically styled room full of elegant details on the walls and floors. There's a brief flash, like a teleportation effect. Then several figures are seen passing by quickly, showing the process of the recent move. After everyone has moved, Eli, who is wearing a robe, offers a guest room for Princess Yotsuha's little sister. Eli conveys her intention to ensure the little sister's safety, while the little sister herself is already sleeping soundly at the bottom of the room. Princess Yotsuha looks shocked and hesitant when receiving the offer. Princess Yotsuha finally gives a slow response while trying to adjust the facial expression that is still mixed with various emotions. Eli continues walking with the Black Clown group on a luxurious rug. Eli gives a signal towards their destination, showing that they are heading to a specific place that has been prepared. The group finally sits in a circle on luxurious chairs surrounding a small table. Eli begins the conversation by asking Princess Yotsuha about the reason she was brought to this place by the Black Clown. Eli continues to ask more seriously, discussing the great effort made just to move Princess Yotsuha via teleportation. Eli wants to know if Princess Yotsuha's arrival has any important business that needs to be conveyed to Eli. Princess Yotsuha sits with an anxious expression and begins to explain that the myth of the creation of the Onijima Islands is actually not just a legendary story. Princess Yotsuha's tone sounds hesitant but still forces herself to be honest. Eli says she already understands and immediately chooses to get to the core of the discussion so as not to beat around the bush. Eli wants all information put on the table without pleasantries. Eli continues by saying firmly that Eli has no knowledge whatsoever about Lord Oboro or the Shimabashira clan. Eli is certain she has never had contact with the Onijima Islands. Eli continues, still with a curious expression, saying that Eli truly has no memory of ever hearing anything about the figure of the god mentioned by Princess Yotsuha. Eli immediately adds with an increasingly sharp tone, saying that all of Lord Oboro's claims about his connection with Eli are just lies. Eli feels very offended because Oboro claimed to have a special relationship. Princess Yotsuha is immediately shocked and her face looks desperate. Princess Yotsuha's eyes widen as she processes the reality that the information she has trusted all this time might be false. Silence then fills the room. Light, Gold, and Princess Yotsuha sit together, deeply confused after the recent revelation. The atmosphere feels tense, but no one immediately speaks. Light finally takes the initiative and asks two things that have made Light curious since earlier to Princess Yotsuha. Light speaks in a cautious tone because he knows the situation is sensitive. Princess Yotsuha, who is bowing with a worried face, asks back what Light wants to ask. Princess Yotsuha looks confused but still tries to focus. Light begins to explain that Light understands Princess Yotsuha trusts the Shimabashira clan because they have long served the holy princesses. But what makes Light wonder is Princess Yotsuha's reason for giving great trust to Oboro, whose status is that of a commoner. Princess Yotsuha begins to tell her motivation. Princess Yotsuha thinks maybe there is someone on the mainland strong enough to defeat the god. For the past 3 years, Princess Yotsuha and Oboro have routinely exchanged letters to share information about strong warriors. Princess Yotsuha continues by showing pieces of paper that have been the result of Princess Yotsuha's research. Princess Yotsuha explains that Oboro always provided complete information about strong warriors from Oboro's journeys as an adventurer. Light begins to nod and process it all. Princess Yotsuha concludes that Mitsuhiko, the head of the Shimabashira clan, was very touched by Oboro's sincerity until he finally gave Oboro an important position as part of Princess Yotsuha's personal guard. Princess Yotsuha closes her eyes while showing an expression of regret. Princess Yotsuha admits that Princess Yotsuha also finally trusted Oboro because of all that closeness and help, even though now everything feels different. Light thinks seriously while hearing all that. Light remembers an old conversation when Light and Oboro were drinking together back when they were still children at the Concord of the Tribes. Light remembers Oboro once talking about information on strong warriors. Light explains Oboro's hobby of training to increase strength, but who also has an additional, more extreme hobby, finding famous great fighters, and sometimes challenging them to improve Oboro's own abilities. A flashback shows little Oboro and Light sitting and drinking together at a tavern. Light explains that Oboro often talked about how exciting it was to collect data on strong people and became increasingly motivated to level up in strength. Back in the room, Light asks Princess Yotsuha again if she knows the reason Oboro and the Shimobashira clan lied to her. Light's tone is calm but firm. Princess Yotsuha closes her eyes and answers in a sad voice that she does not know the reason for that lie at all. Princess Yotsuha's expression looks broken. Princess Yotsuha holds her hands while speaking in a tone of frustration. Princess Yotsuha says that it is still understandable if Oboro, as a newcomer, lied. Princess Yotsuha continues and begins to show an angry expression. Princess Yotsuha says that the Shimobashira clan, as an old clan, should not have taken the action of deceiving the holy princess. A close-up panel shows Princess Yotsuha's face full of anger and shock. Princess Yotsuha's breath is heavy, and she feels that everything really doesn't make sense. Princess Yotsuha finally screams with tears and deep frustration. She feels that all these events are truly too impossible to accept. After that scream, Princess Yotsuha looks like she immediately slumps in her chair with her shoulders falling limp. The atmosphere shows deep sadness, as if her mental state has just fallen to its lowest point. The living room feels silent, with the soft sound of Princess Yotsuha still crying. Light and Eli just sit watching, not knowing how to react. The atmosphere looks a bit awkward, but everyone remains silent because Princess Yotsuha truly looks destroyed. Princess Yotsuha finally stands up and looks at Eli from across the table. She bows deeply while addressing Eli as the almighty magician from the Great Tower. Her voice sounds hoarse, but her determination is clear from the way her body bows. With a face full of tears, Princess Yotsuha begs for help. She explains her despair, hoping Eli will lend her the extraordinary power that has always been a legend. She even offers any payment for safety. Eli just answers casually while reaching for a cup containing something that looks like energen. Eli refuses without hesitation. That reaction makes Princess Yotsuha immediately shocked and look at Eli as if she cannot believe the refusal happened so fast. Princess Yotsuha asks with a trembling voice. She looks shocked by the refusal. Eli answers calmly, explaining that Princess Yotsuha and the Black Clown group previously insulted Eli's friends with the term vulgar, low-class humans. Eli continues by questioning the reason to help someone who has acted rudely. Her tone is sharp, clearly showing that Eli is not happy. Princess Yotsuha immediately panics, holding her mouth because of a sudden canker sore, and is confused about how Eli could know all the words spoken far away in Onijima. Princess Yotsuha starts to suspect and accuses Light in her heart, but she remembers Light never had the opportunity to give that info. She begins to imagine the information gathering capabilities of the magician from the Great Tower, which could reach even distant rooms. Light analyzes the situation and realizes he never sent specific information via telepathy. Light immediately realizes the closest possibility and looks at Nemumu. Nemumu immediately acts flustered, clearly seen from her awkward attitude. Light laughs a little while. Gold just comments that Nemumu is pitiable. Light then explains that Nemumu apparently used a telepathy card secretly to tell Eli because Nemumu could not stand hearing Princess Yotsuha's words. Light also remembers that Eli and Nemumu indeed often discuss poisons and medicine. Princess Yotsuha, hearing that, immediately bows again and apologizes very deeply to the Black Clown side. She regrets having vented misunderstandings and insulted them. Light is shocked to see such a big apology. Princess Yotsuha formally begs again and promises an official apology from the Onijima Islands later. She then kneels in a dogeza position before Eli and again begs for Eli to lend her the power of the almighty magician. Princess Yotsuha then explains that if the situation continues, herself, her younger sister, and all subsequent holy princesses will continue to be sacrificed to the god. She cries while begging Eli to help their future. Eli remains relaxed in refusing and says that the god is not a human affair. Eli suggests that Princess Yotsuha just remain sacrificed. Princess Yotsuha stays in the dogeza position, not moving, only showing deep despair that makes the room even quieter. Princess Yotsuha begs again with a voice full of tears, asking for her younger sister and the next holy princesses to be saved. She remains kneeling with her forehead touching the floor, truly looking broken and desperate. Light sees that and mutters to himself about Princess Yotsuha's desire to save her younger sister. Light remembers his own family and fully understands the feelings Princess Yotsuha is experiencing in such a terrible situation. Light then makes a decision in his heart. Light also has personal reasons for finding out why Oboro and the Shimobashira clan deceived Princess Yotsuha. Light feels that information could be useful for revenge against Oboro. Eli sighs slowly and begins to reconsider. Eli says that refusing, after seeing such a desperate plea, would instead make Eli look like a coward who does not dare to face the god. Eli's tone is still relaxed, but her decision has changed. Eli stands in front of Princess Yotsuha, who is still kneeling. Eli states that she will accept the request, this one time only, as an answer to the plea that was so desperate. Princess Yotsuha immediately cries with relief, while saying thank you loudly and repeatedly. Princess Yotsuha returns to prostrate in dogeza while continuing to thank her many times. Eli accepts the thanks, but emphasizes that she will not solve this problem for free. Eli asks Princess Yotsuha to sit because she wants to sign an official agreement with the Onijima nation. Princess Yotsuha finally sits back down with a relieved smile and a brief, enthusiastic answer. The tension slowly drops after that big decision is made, leaving the room, which was previously full of tears, a little lighter. That morning, the atmosphere of the meeting was still tense, but full of hope. The still enthusiastic holy princess vowed with full confidence that whatever conditions Eli proposed would be carried out. Her attitude showed how great her determination was to solve the Onijima god problem as quickly as possible without hesitation. Eli issued the terms of the agreement written in several documents. The main conditions included the Onijima Island's obligation to bear all costs for the conquest of the god, surrender items, documents, information, or personnel needed by the Great Tower, and support Lilith's ascent to the Queen's throne at the upcoming summit in the Principality. After the major and other minor conditions were agreed upon by both parties, the Great Tower was finally permitted to collect information within the Onijima Islands for the purposes of the god's conquest. This agreement became the foundation of cooperation that determined the direction of the subsequent conflict. A clear sky was seen above the spiral structure where the meeting took place. Morning marked the end of the long discussion. The meeting was adjourned temporarily so that all parties could prepare their next steps. The magician and the holy princess immediately signed the agreement, marking the official approval of their cooperation. Eli gave instructions to the holy princess to rest at the Great Tower because for the time being, she would stay there. Eli also asked Yotsuha to explain the essence of the current situation to Ayame, so that both of their understandings would remain in sync with the latest conditions. Yotsuha responded to that request with a relieved and fully prepared smile. She felt her burden of thought was reduced because the situation was finally moving in a clearer direction. With an accepting attitude, she expressed her gratitude for the trust given. Yotsuha then looked at her younger sister, who was sleeping soundly in the room. Two maids left the room after ensuring everything was safe, then closed the door from the outside as a precaution. The atmosphere in the room felt quiet because her sister's sleep was not disturbed. Yotsuha sat on the edge of the bed while stroking her sister's head gently. That movement showed the greatness of her affection and her relief, because for the time being, her sister was in a safer environment compared to the previous pressure-filled condition. The story then moved to the deepest part of Naraku, filled with a dark and eerie atmosphere. That nuance described how deep and dangerous the side of the world unseen by ordinary people was, a place where secrets and grand plans hide. The scene shifted to a room like an office or a library in the Great Tower. Light sat relaxed behind a desk while enjoying Tuku coffee. In front of him, Eli stood while observing Light's reaction, waiting for the discussion to start because this summons happened suddenly. Light conveyed the reason for summoning Eli while still smiling. Light explained that Nemumu had already been asked to prepare if Yotsuha was brought to the Great Tower. Light wanted to ensure everyone understood the situation, so that the steps taken would not miss the main goal. Eli felt very happy because she was summoned directly by Light. Eli's enthusiasm was clearly visible because no matter the time of the summons to Eli, it was always an honor. Eli's highly enthusiastic attitude made the meeting atmosphere feel more alive. Eli added with a flirtatious style that Light's calls, especially at night, would always be welcomed with pleasure if Light felt lonely. Light responded lightly, accepting that offer as a form of support without extending the atmosphere beyond the main topic. Light returned to focus on the core of the discussion while holding his cup of Tuku coffee. Light questioned the reason Oboro and the Shimobashira clan, who were responsible for the Holy Princesses, committed fraud against Yotsuha. That situation felt odd and nonsensical to Light. Light tried to analyze the possibility that the matter might be related to a power struggle between the Kamijo clan and the Shimobashira clan. To Light, such an internal conflict made sense because the level of political tension in the Onijima Islands was high enough. Eli responded happily and optimistically that when they arrived and began collecting information on the Onijima Islands, the real reason would be revealed. Eli was sure that the hidden information would bring clarity regarding the actions of Oboro and the Shimobashira clan. Eli then explained the challenges of collecting information because Onijima is an island nation with difficult information access. Added to that were concerns about Onijima's strength, and they previously did not ask Aoyuki to use her monsters so as not to trigger bigger problems. Eli added that Sogen, the level 1,500 Kamijo guard encountered at the judge's office, was the Oni with the highest level in that area. This information meant Light did not need to be too wary of Onijima's strength, because the main threat had already been seen. Eli continued that the disappearance of Yotsuha and her sister for the second time must have made the Onijima Islands even more chaotic. Besides that, the official permission from Yotsuha, as the head of state, now allowed them to collect information without political obstacles. Eli felt the situation opened up a great opportunity. With direct permission from Yotsuha, they could move more boldly in espionage activities. Eli's confidence made their plan feel more solid and directed. Light agreed with Eli's opinion that information should be collected as much as possible before determining the final steps. Unexpected factors could arise, so preparations had to be made perfectly to avoid fatal mistakes. While lifting the Tuku coffee, Light pondered that there was still no guarantee whether Yotsuha could be fully trusted. Light also considered bad possibilities, such as the conquest of the god actually causing the Onijima Islands to sink if there were major unexpected impacts. Light concluded that collecting information would help determine the best way to take revenge on Oboro. The truth related to Yotsuha's manipulation could also be revealed clearly if all pieces of information were successfully collected. Light gave instructions to Eli to use monsters or any cards necessary to get the information they needed. Light wanted to ensure no gaps were missed in this investigation because every detail could be the key. Light looked at Eli and ensured whether the task could be done. Light's gaze showed seriousness and great hope in Eli's ability to play this important role for the smooth operation of their plan in the Onijima region. Eli answered enthusiastically that Eli would collect every detail of information without missing anything. Eli swore she would make Light satisfied with the results. Eli's confidence closed the meeting with positive energy. The end of the chapter was closed with a narrative that they started the first step to collect information inside the Onijima Islands. Big preparations moved, becoming the beginning of a conflict that would grow even deeper. Little Oboro grew up as a provincial boy in the Onijima Islands, the second son of a soldier and former member of the tribal union. In that place, boys were used to learning martial arts from a young age because they grew up with the mindset that one day they would have to fight alongside the Holy Princess to defeat the god if the god were to rise again. Little Oboro joined martial arts training with his older brother and the neighbor's children with the simple notion that his future would definitely be as a soldier like his father. Everything was like a normal life path that had been prepared since birth without any other plans. One day, Oboro was having morning training by the sea, his favorite place, so he could also feel the strong sea breeze. While focusing on training, Oboro suddenly saw something far on the water's surface that made his heart drop to his stomach. The Onijima Islands are surrounded by water on all sides, so sea monsters sometimes appear, and the Onijima people hunt sea monsters to level up. But what appeared that day was not a standard level, not an ordinary creature, but a giant form whose level broke into the thousands, a creature fit to be called a sea kaiju. Oboro saw that sea kaiju appear to the surface with an insane size, and immediately realized that it was not the type of monster that should exist on the islands. Oboro's body immediately trembled, emitting uncontrollable sounds of fear. But in the midst of panic, Oboro still thought he had to inform the adults. The sea kaiju got closer, and the sea exploded with a large splash. It looked like a giant dragon with a head full of thorns and large wings, standing right in front of Oboro. However, before Oboro could escape, the sea kaiju's neck was severed just like that, as if destroyed by something too fast to comprehend. The sea kaiju's body collapsed, hitting the coastal sand until the ground shook. Dust flew, water splashed everywhere, and for the first time, Oboro saw a monster of that level die, just like that, without a fight. Oboro stared blankly until his face looked like a Zuma frog that lost brain function temporarily. In front of the collapsed sea kaiju body stood a muscular man wearing dark clothes with a sheathed sword, standing casually on the carcass as if the slaughter just now was a trivial thing. Before Oboro could think or ask who that person was, the mysterious figure disappeared, just like that, as if he never existed. There were no footprints, no sound, no remaining aura, everything completely vanished. Oboro's body ran out of energy due to shock, adrenaline, and fear, until he finally fainted right next to the sea kaiju's carcass, which was no longer moving. The next day, Oboro woke up at home, and his mother panicked, checking Oboro's condition. His mother said Oboro was found fainted on the beach without any wounds and should be fine now after resting. A crowd of Onijima adults came and asked Oboro to explain what happened on the beach. Oboro was still trembling and finally said that there was a human dressed in black who killed that monster alone. Two Onijima adult men laughed at the story in a dismissive tone, saying it was impossible for a human to kill a 1,000-level monster. They assumed Oboro was dreaming and confused due to shock. They tried to calm Oboro down and told him just to rest, because that event was surely too heavy for a small child. They assumed the monster's carcass just happened to wash ashore, and then Oboro panicked until he fainted. News about the mysterious, super strong human who appeared on the Onijima Islands had spread as gossip, but because no one believed a child's story, that rumor finally evaporated just like that, without a continuation. A few days later, Oboro returned to walk to the beach alone while thinking about that event. After remembering more clearly, Oboro felt that the sea kaiju was not attacking, but instead looked like it was fleeing in fear. Oboro began to understand that the sea kaiju came to Onijima not to hunt humans, but precisely to flee from someone far more terrible than the monster itself, namely the figure of the human dressed in black who appeared later. Oboro clenched his fists with an expression full of determination. In his heart, Oboro planted a new dream that was different from the future plan that once felt certain. That dream was simple but heavy. Oboro wanted to be as strong as that human dressed in black, as strong as the mysterious figure capable of making a 1,000-level monster run in fear. Since that day, Oboro's life goal officially changed forever. Several years passed, and Oboro grew into a young Onijima fighter. On the seashore, a group of Onijima little party boys were seen successfully taking down a small sea monster, marking the formation of a new generation of warriors on that island. Two adult men saw the monster's corpse while concluding that the monster was strong enough, but they were still safe because Oboro was on their side. That sentence came out in a proud tone, as if Oboro had become the foundation of the future. An adult man with a sword praised Oboro and admitted casually that there was no one in his generation comparable to Oboro. Oboro stood while holding the hilt of his sword with a sharp gaze. In his heart, Oboro compared himself to the human dressed in black from the past and concluded that he was still a beginner. Oboro felt that defeating sea monsters roaming the island did not give significant progress for his level. Oboro decided it was time to leave the islands for the mainland to develop further. The ship, visible in the distance, became a symbol of the beginning of Oboro's new journey to the outside world. After arriving on the mainland, Oboro tried farming alone in a cave full of small insect monsters and managed to defeat everyone without difficulty. Although easy, Oboro realized his leveling progress remained very slow. Oboro realized that exploring dungeons alone was too exhausting, and his funds were getting thin. Oboro finally decided to join another group so he could fight and earn money while leveling up. Oboro joined the Golden Treasure Chest Party, a treasure hunting group in dungeons to get money and increase his level. They defeated many monsters and obtained a lot of treasures that helped Oboro level up and have capital. However, Oboro then checked his status and realized his leveling progress was getting slower. Oboro stood alone with the bitter realization that the limit of his potential might only be around level 600. Oboro refused to get stuck at that level and, full of anger, vowed to obtain the highest power like the human dressed in black from the past. Oboro began to try to break his limits by choosing solo fights against high-level monsters. Oboro also studied under strong adventurers who were already famous in the history of battle. Everything was done to pursue the power considered impossible to be reached by ordinary humans. One day, a man was tied to a wooden pole and shouted in fear, asking for mercy. Oboro stood holding a sword while asking in his heart if a method like this could really help transcend his level limit. Oboro heard rumors about an elf knight who managed to break his level limit by killing human slaves, and that rumor did not disappear from Oboro's mind. On his journey, Oboro passed the ruins of giant statues in the forest while contemplating the ways the mainland world utilized low-caste humans. Several years passed. Oboro remained a member of the Golden Treasure Chest Party until one day they found something. One of the members looked surprised, and the team realized they had found a gold hand mirror with a magical aura. A group member hoped the leader would appraise the item, and after being checked through an appraisal item, they confirmed that the mirror was a magic item called the duplication mirror. A female member explained that the item could give the user the power of the person reflected in it. All group members were shocked until someone spontaneously shouted with joy, saying the item might be Phantasma class or even epic. Two beast-faced members were very excited, imagining a large sum of money from the auction. The female member held the mirror happily and called this "find a great stroke of luck for the leader." Oboro only stood behind them in silence without showing any reaction. In his heart, Oboro imagined if the duplication mirror were used to copy the power of the human dressed in black or someone at that level. Oboro was sure that meant obtaining the highest power he had been chasing all this time. A moment later, Oboro was seen covered in blood, with a duplication mirror tucked into his chest armor, and all the party members were dead. Oboro stated his determination that Oboro would find someone possessing the highest power, like the human dressed in black, then use that mirror to make that highest power Oboro's own. In the middle of the ocean scene there, a ship is heading toward Onijima Island, and we are presented with a shocking confession. A short message from the head of the Shimobashira clan reads, "Mas Oboro, I want to speak with you directly." Boom! The message felt like a chain pulling at his neck. Although he hated having to halt his hunt, loyalty mixed with primal fear forced Oboro to step toward the harbor, returning to the Oni Island country. The salty sea breeze whipped against Oboro's face as he stood stiffly on the ship's deck. Before him, the vast ocean seemed to reflect the uncertainty of his heart. He suspected this summons was closely related to the master, the figure who held the key to absolute power. What a total pain the Sebai is. "Ah," he muttered softly, his voice swallowed by the crashing waves. He knew full well that his current strength was not enough to betray the clan, so obedience was the only way to survive. Oboro's memories dragged him back to the darkness of the abyss a year ago. The fishy smell of blood and the war cries from the Gathering of Races Alliance still felt real. At that time, they thought they had succeeded in slaughtering the master, but the figure named Susipto, whom they wiped out, was just a fatal mistake. Turns out, Susipto was a fake master. The image of Susipto's stiff body on the ground of the abyss became a deep wound in Oboro's memory, a collective failure that left an unquenched thirst for the truth. He took a long, deep breath, trying to dispel the remnants of trauma from his head. Since the incident in the abyss, every trail he followed always ended in a dead end. Oboro had squeezed information out of many fighters, but the existence of the real master seemed to have been erased by fate. The reports he brought back to the clan felt empty and hollow. This failure wounded his high pride, making him feel like a hunter who had lost his sense of smell in the middle of a dark forest. However, there was one piece of memory that never faded: his brief encounter with the man dressed entirely in black. The figure did not exude a bloodthirsty aura, yet his mere presence was enough to make space and time around him feel distorted. The man's power transcended all magical logic Oboro had ever studied. In his silence, Oboro believed that only that mysterious man was worthy of holding the title of the Invincible Master, his true ultimate target. Oboro reached into his cloak and pulled out the duplicate mirror, its surface gleaming darkly. He stared at the reflection of his own eyes, which looked haggard yet full of ambition. "Master or not, I don't care about that title," he whispered to his own reflection. To him, the master was just a massive target containing energy that he had to transfer into his mirror. He didn't care about the balance of the world, he only cared about how much power he could seize for himself. Oboro's ego had reached a stage where morality no longer had a place. He viewed power as the only currency of value in this world. To him, it didn't matter whether the master was a savior deity or a monster crawling out of the deepest hell. If that figure possessed the power to make him invincible, then Oboro would still hunt him to the ends of the earth. For him, being a predator was the only way to avoid becoming prey. As the silhouette of the Oni Island country's mountains began to pierce the fog on the horizon, a feeling of disgust started to creep into Oboro's heart. This island, with all its conservative rules, felt far too cramped for his overflowing ambition. He looked at the coastline with a cold gaze, determined to wrap up this diplomatic business as quickly as possible. He longed to return to the mainland, where chaos offered him greater opportunities to find powerful monsters he could prey upon. The heavy wooden door opened, revealing a meeting hall dominated by the scent of sandalwood incense. At the far end of the room sat a man with a straight posture who exuded absolute authority. The air in the room felt heavy, as if gravity was pressing down on everyone who entered. An official in full armor bowed extremely low while whispering a name that made the atmosphere even more tense: Mitsuhiko. Oboro felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up instantly. Without wasting any time, Oboro sat down and immediately went into cross-legged sitting mode on the cold wooden floor. He bowed his head as deeply as possible, showing perfect formal respect. "It is a great honor to audience with you directly, Mitsuhiko," he said in a voice carefully controlled to sound obedient. Beneath that obedience, he was measuring the clan leader's strength, trying to figure out whether the man in front of him was a wall he could leap over or not. Mitsuhiko gave a thin smile, an expression that looked friendly, yet his eyes remained as sharp as a blade. He explained that he had been monitoring Oboro's every move through intelligence reports, even though the clan's bureaucracy often slowed down his communication. "Don't be so stiff like that, Oboro. Your journey from the mainland must have been tiring. Sit down and enjoy this atmosphere," Mitsuhiko said. His casual tone of speech actually made Oboro feel increasingly cautious and uneasy. The atmosphere changed drastically when Mitsuhiko began pouring table-to sosro into a ceramic cup. Hot steam billowed, but Mitsuhiko's gaze grew cold instead. He set the teapot down with a soft clinking sound that echoed through the silent room. "Enough with the pleasantries," he said in a low, emphasized tone. The leader's eyes were now locked onto Oboro's, as if he could read every foul intention in his heart. "Let us talk about the real reason why Oboro is here." The atmosphere in the room suddenly became extremely heavy when Mitsuhiko made an unexpected offer. With a low but authoritative voice, he stared directly at Oboro's face. "Oboro, you are a highly valuable asset to this clan. What if you stop being a shadow out there and fully join us in the core ranks?" The offer was not just a job promotion, but an invitation into the innermost circle of Shimabashira's power. Oboro's eyes widened, his facial muscles tensing in shock. "Join! You? In the core ranks?" He repeated the words as if testing their authenticity. His mind spun rapidly, searching for hidden motives. Why would a Grand Clan head offer a strategic position to a rogue hunter whose reputation was drenched in blood? The momentary silence between them felt suffocating, filled with suspicion, hidden behind a mask of respect. Mitsuhiko began to lay out his horrific vision in an extremely calm tone. He explained that the Shimobashira clan was no longer satisfied with merely ruling this small island. They had a grand plan to awaken and control the Oni god, an ancient entity whose power was capable of leveling mountains. Their target was total hegemony over the entire mainland, destroying the existing world order and replacing it with absolute rule under a single flag. Hearing that explanation, Oboro was completely struck dumb, his tongue feeling paralyzed. The ambition he had just heard was far grander, darker, and crazier than anything that had ever crossed his wildest imagination. He realized that his journey in search of power all this time was nothing more than child's play compared to this global conspiracy. Oboro felt as though he had just stepped into a vortex of secrets, capable of erasing world history overnight. You might think the Oni god is just a bedtime fairy tale told by parents to scare children, Mitsuhiko continued with a cold smile. But in reality, that entity is very real. It is sleeping right beneath our feet, in the deepest hollows of the earth, in a sealed state. It is merely waiting for the right time and the perfect trigger to be reawakened to fulfill its destiny of destruction. That's impossible. Power like that shouldn't exist in this world, Oboro murmured softly. As someone who dedicated his life to stealing power, he was acutely aware that there was a wide gulf separating the strength of even the strongest human from the power of a god. Knowing that the most terrifying legend of his homeland truly existed and was being prepared for war made Oboro feel horrified, yet fascinated by its potential for destruction. Mitsuhiko emphasized that the existence of the Oni god was a state secret of the highest level, guarded with their lives. For centuries, this truth had been hidden from the common people using false narratives to maintain social stability. While ordinary people lived in a false peace, the great clans worked behind the scenes, conducting dark experiments and forbidden excavations to ensure this ultimate weapon remained within their grasp. He then explained the dark history covered by the dust of time. In the beginning, the clan's ancestors were actually terrified and tried their hardest to seal and weaken the Oni god so that the human race would not go extinct. However, with the passage of time and the changing of generations, that pure fear slowly rotted and turned into unstoppable greed. The fear of destruction had been replaced by the desire to possess that destructive power. When the clan leaders realized how rapid the technological and military progress of other races on the mainland was, the fear of invasion began to haunt them. The Kamiju clan, which held immense political influence at the time, proposed a radical defensive plan. The plan, which was initially aimed at protecting the island from external attacks, quickly shifted into an offensive plan to secure their dominance before other parties could make a move. Their radical idea was to change the status of the Oni god from a sacred object of worship or a source of fear into a strategic weapon, a weapon of mass destruction whose function was similar to a controlled natural disaster. With this god in their hands, the clans of Oni Island wanted to ensure that not a single kingdom or alliance on the mainland would dare to oppose their will, creating an enforced peace through terror. To restore the god's power, which had withered due to thousands of years of sealing, they committed the most taboo act in the history of magic. The seal on the god's head was forcibly broken to reactivate its consciousness. Since then, bloody rituals involving human life sacrifices began in the underground depths. Blood and screams became the primary fuel to lure back the ancient power that had long been dormant. The principle is very simple and efficient, Mitsuhiko explained, without a shred of guilt on his face. The power of the Oni god is directly proportional to the number of souls it swallows. The more high-quality offerings, especially those with strong magical energy, the more horrific the destructive power it can generate. That explanation made the already cold room feel even more frozen, revealing how cheap the price of life was to them. Cold sweat began to drip down Oboro's forehead, soaking the collar of his clothes. As a power-hungry fighter, he understood perfectly the risks of holding a sword that was too sharp. But Mitsuhiko, if a power that massive awakens without perfect control, won't this island and our entire clan be destroyed first before the enemy? He asked with a slightly trembling voice, trying to show practical logic amidst this madness. Mitsuhiko nodded slowly, with an extremely calm expression, as if he had already predicted the question. You are right. A wild and imperfect awakening is just a recipe for doomsday for all of us. We are not so foolish as to unleash a monster without a leash. That is why for decades, we have focused on finding and developing an absolute method of control so that the god only moves according to our wishes. He revealed that after years of dark research that sacrificed the lives of hundreds of researchers and sorcerers, they finally found the key to taming the god. The secret was hidden in ancient manuscripts combined with modern magic techniques. They had successfully cracked the genetic and spiritual code of the entity, allowing humans to give direct commands into the core of the god's consciousness. The method is by using the mark of enslavement, the most complex magical seal ever created by mankind. This seal is etched onto the body of a specially selected human as the primary offering. The soul of that human will not merely be swallowed, but transformed into a psychic bridge that connects the user's will with the power of the Oni god. In this way, the god becomes an extension of the controller's will. Thanks to advancements in technology and forbidden magical knowledge that they stole or bought at high prices from the mainland, this control technique has now reached a perfect stage. Their ambition to subjugate the world is no longer just a daydream, but a certainty that is only a matter of time. All instruments are ready, and failure is no longer a variable they worry about in these calculations. The Kamiju clan and the Shimobashira clan have now fully united their strength and resources. This cooperation between the two strongest clans in the Oni Island country ensures that no internal obstacles can stop them. With this union, the grand plan they call the Mainland Conquest has entered its final phase and is ready to be executed immediately with full power unmatched by anyone. Right at this moment, Mitsuhiko stood up from his seat with an overflowing aura of victory. All the seals on the Oni god's body have been completely opened. The entity is now under the control of our magic chains, leaving only the final stage of energy stabilization for its power to reach its peak. He stared toward the window, as if already seeing the mainland burning and bowing under the rule he had just awakened. The tension in the room reached its peak to the point where Oboro found it difficult just to breathe. His hunter instincts screamed that a great danger lurked behind Mitsuhiko's friendliness. "Why are you telling me all these secrets that could destroy your clan?" he asked with a tone full of suspicion. To him, a secret this massive could not possibly be shared for free with someone who all this time had only operated in the shadows outside, without a strong bond to the clan structure. Mitsuhiko sat back down calmly, then gave a thin smile that actually looked extremely terrifying in Oboro's eyes. "Because you have a very special relationship with our Miko princess, Yotsuha. You might think your relationship is hidden, but the letters you secretly exchanged over the past few months are already in our hands. That correspondence gave us highly valuable information regarding the princess's position and inner movements." Oboro's face suddenly turned deathly pale, but he tried to maintain his composure with what little pride he had left. "I was only reporting the results of my investigation regarding the master to her as part of my official duties," Oboro answered quickly, trying to build a self-defense. He attempted to convince Mitsuhiko that his closeness with Yotsuha was purely professional, even though in his heart he knew there was an emotional bond deeper than just a duty report. "We know exactly what is in those letters," Mitsuhiko interrupted in a cold tone that cut Oboro's words short. "We have dissected every line and word you wrote. Yotsuha trusts you deeply, Oboro Dono. She considers you her protector out there. And it is precisely because of that blind trust that you are the most suitable person for us to ensure that the princess will not flee again from the destiny the clan has set for her." Mitsuhiko's smile now slowly turned into a sickening, cruel smirk, shedding all masks of a clan leader's dignity. Full control over the power of the Oni god requires an offering from a pure, sacred bloodline. And we will reach the pinnacle of this world hegemony by sacrificing the two most precious people to this clan, Princess Yotsuha and her younger sister, Ayame. Those words fell like a death sentence that shook the entire principle of power Oboro had firmly held until now. Behind the curtain of darkness lies a highly secret ancient method to tame absolute power. Legends state that the Oni god cannot be conquered by physical strength alone. The only way to totally control that sublime entity is through a cruel ritual, providing a human offering whose entire body has been etched with the tattoos of an eternal enslavement curse to serve as the vessel of control for the god. Mitsuhiko went on to explain that this horrific practice was nothing new, but a bloody tradition that had been rooted for centuries. Over the years, they had sacrificed thousands of lives without mercy. Unfortunate human slaves to criminals from the Oni race itself were gathered just to be made into sacrifices. Their lives were deemed no more than fuel to satisfy the hunger of the Oni god and the ambition of the rulers. There, Oboro's face could only stare blankly like an idiot listening to that horrific explanation. Next, the evil plan entered a much more extreme and ambitious chapter. They were no longer satisfied with ordinary sacrifices. Their main target this time was the Miko princess, a holy figure possessing the strongest spiritual bloodline. Their plan was highly specific, carving the curse of enslavement directly onto the princess's smooth skin, then presenting her as the main sacrifice to ensure their control over the Oni god becomes absolute. The details of this plan involve two innocent lives. The current Miko princess, named Yotsuha, is positioned as the primary vessel to lock the Oni god's consciousness. However, they also plan to sacrifice her younger sister, Ayame, as a reinforcement for the seal. This dual sacrifice is believed to create an unshakable bond of curses, ensuring that the destructive power of the Oni god will be completely under their thumb forever. Mitsuhiko continued explaining his crazy plan by whispering that right now, the Kamiju clan must be celebrating, feeling on top of the world, because their ancient dream of conquering the mainland is right before their eyes. They are certain the power of the Oni god will soon be theirs. However, behind that triumphant laughter, a bitter reality lurks. Mitsuhiko emphasized that such glory will never happen, because another dark plan is moving behind the scenes. The curtain of betrayal is finally unveiled. The faction that has been helping the Kamiju clan all this time turns out to have a far more cunning, hidden agenda. They have no intention of handing over the power of the Oni god to anyone. The real plan is to trick the clan at the very last second, seize control of the ritual, and ensure that the Oni god will only submit to their own commands, leaving the Kamiju clan in utter ruin. The root of this betrayal is a long festering grudge. The Shimabashira clan has worked hard and risked everything for the success of this plan. Yet the arrogant Kamiju clan showed absolutely no respect. Instead of sharing the glory, the Kamiju clan did not even utter a single word of thanks. This blatant insult left a deep and unhealable emotional wound. The anger suppressed for years has finally reached a boiling point. With eyes full of pure hatred, Mitsuhiko stated that all the arrogance and arbitrary behavior of the Kamiju clan are unforgivable sins. To him, respect is dead, and this betrayal is not just a choice, but a logical consequence of the blind pride the Kamiju clan has always shown. As the pinnacle of vengeance, they plan to turn the high-ranking officials of the Kamiju clan into the main dish for the Oni god. Although on paper both clans should be equals, Kamiju has always treated Shimabashira like disposable dogs or slaves. "This is not a crime," he muttered with complete satisfaction. "This is justice. The blood of the Kamiju elites will be the final sacrifice to perfect their plan." The story continues with a tempting offer from Mitsuhiko to Oboro. In a persuasive tone, Mitsuhiko asks about Oboro's dream of absolute power. He promises that if Oboro is willing to ally with him and help execute the rest of this plan, power beyond human imagination will truly fall into his hands, a power offer almost impossible for anyone to refuse. Hearing that explanation, Oboro was stunned for a moment, like someone holding back a hiccup. In his mind, he immediately realized that this was the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity he had been waiting for. He muttered softly to himself that if all these crazy plans could truly be realized, he would be at the top of the food chain. This golden opportunity was too precious to pass up, regardless of how dirty the path to be taken. Oboro's gaze turned sharp and full of burning ambition. He was no longer hesitating. With firm determination, he convinced himself that fate had brought him to this point. The absolute power that had only been a shadow in his dreams now felt incredibly real and close. Whatever the risk, he swore he would do whatever it takes to make the god's power entirely his own. To prove his newfound loyalty, Oboro dropped down and prostrated himself solemnly before Mitsuhiko. He threw away his pride and begged earnestly to be allowed to join this grand plan. Even if he were only used as a disposable pawn at any time, he swore he would become the most useful and loyal tool to ensure Mitsuhiko's victory. Mitsuhiko responded to the oath of loyalty with a wide, satisfied smile. He welcomed Oboro's plea with open arms, stating that he gladly accepted Oboro into his circle. Hearing this acceptance, Oboro's heart was filled with relief and enthusiasm. He immediately paid his deepest respects as a token of gratitude, feeling that his journey to the pinnacle of power had just begun. However, that tranquility was shattered in an instant. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became extremely tense. Mitsuhiko shouted in a tone of immense shock and fury. He demanded an immediate explanation regarding the nonsensical news. How could the Miko princess and her younger sister, Ayame, mysteriously disappear right when the grand ritual was about to begin? With a trembling voice, the situation report was delivered. Based on the statement of the elite guards on duty, the two sisters seemed to have vanished into thin air. There were no signs of damage to the door, no traces of resistance, and no footprints left behind in their hiding place. They simply vanished from inside the heavily guarded room, leaving their pursuers in total confusion. Mitsuhiko's outburst of anger shook the entire room. His eyes widened with emotion as suspicion began to grow. He questioned whether the Miko princess, who had seemed obedient all this time, actually already knew about their evil plan. The thought that Yotsuha realized the horrific fate awaiting her and decided to flee with her sister made Mitsuhiko feel deeply humiliated and threatened by his own failure. Mitsuhiko's frustration reached its peak. He felt this stroke of bad luck came at an incredibly wrong time, right when his ambition was nearing the finish line. He complained furiously, recalling how hard they had worked to eliminate obstacles from the Kamiju clan, the Dragonute race, to the demons on the mainland. All those sacrifices felt in vain if the key element of the ritual, the Miko princess, was not in their hands. In his uncontrollable rage, Mitsuhiko accidentally revealed a horrific truth. He admitted to killing Yotsuha's mother, the previous Miko princess, in order to accelerate the ritual. All this time, he had fabricated reports about a workplace accident to cover up the fact that he had sacrificed the mother. He maintained this massive lie just to ensure this plan went perfectly. But now, everything was in danger of falling apart. Deep panic enveloped Mitsuhiko. He realized that if Yotsuha was not found as soon as possible, the entire conspiracy he had built over the years would crumble into nothingness. With a hoarse, strained voice, he gave an absolute command to all his troops to surround the area. He demanded that the Miko princess be found, alive or dead, by any means necessary, and whatever the cost. Oboro, who had already left the room, immediately bowed and rushed off to carry out the search order in deep fear. Amidst the rising tension inside the palace, the camera shifts to the quiet roof of the building. There, two black birds could be seen perched silently, watching every movement of the humans below with a cold gaze, as if recording every detail of the unfolding chaos. The two birds remained silent, serving as mute witnesses to the evil conspiracy and panic sweeping through Mitsuhiko's residence. They made no sound, merely watching sharply as the soldiers began to move aimlessly. Well, to put into perspective, those two birds are like the people watching this video, just watching, but won't subscribe or donate. Hey. Okay, next. The narrative now shifts to a hidden and quiet location, namely Eli's donut tower, far from the hustle and bustle of the search. This event took place a few days after that thrilling escape. It is revealed that Princess Yotsuha and her younger sister Ayame have been safely moved to an isolated giant tower. There, they could finally breathe a sigh of relief for a moment, though the dark shadows of the past continue to haunt their minds. The disappearance of the Miko princess turned out to have an extraordinary systemic impact, causing the Oni Island country to fall into severe political chaos. However, this chaotic situation actually became the perfect opening for a third party. While officials were busy blaming each other, a secret investigation team moved quickly to conduct a thorough inquiry, gathering evidence of crimes that had long been buried deep. Inside a dimly lit room in the tower, Eli, who is still wearing the mysterious black cloak, speaks directly to Yotsuha. In a heavy voice full of empathy, he hands over a stack of documents. He admits that the information inside will be very painful, but he emphasizes that every written word is a verified fact obtained through a deep investigation into their clan's dark history. Upon reading the documents, Yotsuha's body began to tremble violently. Her eyes widened as she saw evidence of unimaginable cruelty. Tears began to stream down her cheeks as she murmured in a barely audible voice. She kept refusing to believe that the people she had respected and loved all this time could do something so atrocious. Her heart shattered upon realizing that her life was nothing but a massive lie. The documents laid out a dark history hidden for centuries. It was revealed that every generation of the Miko princess had been turned into a living sacrifice for the convenience of the Oni Island inhabitants and the ambition of expansion into the mainland. The sacred reason about defeating the soon-to-awaken Oni god turned out to be mere fairy tales invented to manipulate the princesses into willingly surrendering their lives without suspicion. This bitter reality made Yotsuha feel utterly devastated and completely betrayed. Her family's devotion, which she had always regarded as a sacred duty to protect the world, turned out to be nothing more than a structured deception. She realized with grief that the smiles of the people around her were fake, and that every step she took toward the sacrificial altar all this time had been orchestrated by traitors. That profound sadness slowly evaporated, replaced by a burning anger. As she realized the scale of the deception that involved her mother's death and the threat to her sister, Ayame, Yotsuha's eyes widened with a terrifying glare. She realized that her entire nation and family had been utterly hoodwinked by a handful of greedy people. Her rage was now beginning to boil over, ready to explode at any moment. The conspiracy behind the sacrificial ritual was finally exposed without a single trace left hidden. She questioned whether the sacred reason of appeasing the Oni god was just a foul cover-up. Had they really been heartless enough all this time to sacrifice the lives of so many pure girls just to satisfy political egos and ambitions to conquer the continent? A painful question. Yotsuha screamed in agony, imagining the suffering of her ill-fated predecessors. She began to picture how many Miko princesses before her had to go through nights full of fear and loneliness. They died in ignorance, thinking their sacrifices were useful to the people, when in fact they only died for the personal interests of the rulers. The weight of this injustice felt like a chokehold on her neck. Now, Yotsuha's anger was entirely directed at the power-hungry masterminds. She could not accept the fact that human lives, including her mother's, were treated so cheaply. She felt completely disgusted that such immense suffering and loss of life were inflicted just to satisfy the filthy desires and selfish ambitions of a group of people who orchestrated this bloody conspiracy since the dawn of their history. As a heartbreaking conclusion, she also recalled how often the Miko princesses wept alone in their rooms. They lived in the shadow of death, haunted by extreme fear every day upon realizing that their existence in this world was merely as a disposable item for the Oni god. Their unheard cries have now become the fire that will burn this entire conspiracy down. The peak of Yotsuha's rage exploded when the veil of falsehood was fully lifted. Her mother's death, which she had been mourning all this time as a tragic accident, turned out to be nothing but a rotten lie to cover up the sacrificial ritual to the Oni god. With a hoarse voice, She screamed hysterically, realizing that her mother had been betrayed, and now they greedily targeted Ayame, her little sister, to be the next sacrifice. Amidst the storm of emotions, Yotsuha stood tall with what remained of her courage. She shouted loudly, warning the traitors not to look down on her dignity ever again. With profound self-respect, she asserted that a Miko princess is not livestock they can raise and slaughter at will just to satisfy the evil ambitions and disgusting lust for power of the clan elites. Tears were still streaming down her cheeks, but her gaze had now turned cold and deadly. Shaken yet filled with iron determination, Yotsuha swore a terrifying sacred oath. She declared with absolute firmness that from this exact second, she herself would act as the executioner for all those who committed atrocious acts and defiled her family's blood with betrayal. The hatred within Yotsuha's heart had reached a boiling point that could no longer be extinguished. With eyes shining with burning rage behind her tears, she declared her deep-seated vengeance. She swore before fate that she would never grant forgiveness to those traitors, even if she had to hunt them down to the deepest pits of hell. Damn, boys. Reading this gets chilling. Okay, moving on. Yotsuha is seen turning her gaze to the mysterious figure in front of her, addressing her as the Witch Lady of the Giant Tower. She stands firmly in the middle of that grand, vast room, showing a gesture of absolute readiness. There is no more doubt in her movements. She is fully prepared to take real action and pay the price for all the bitter truths she has just learned. With heartbreaking honesty, Yotsuha admitted that she was actually terrified of dying. She felt horrified imagining her body being offered to the terrifying Oni god. It was precisely that overwhelming fear that initially drove her to escape to the mainland, hoping she could find a way to seal the Oni god forever so that she and her sister could continue to live in peace. Even though fear still loomed, Yotsuha stated a commitment that transcended her personal ego. For the safety of Ayame, whom she dearly loves, and to protect everyone in the world from this bloody conspiracy, she was now completely ready to sacrifice her own life. To her, dying to stop this vicious cycle of evil was far more honorable than living as an obedient pawn. The pain of being completely hoodwinked pierced her chest sharply once again. Yotsuha seemingly couldn't believe how low the morals were of those she considered allies. She never expected that the sincere devotion offered by her family bloodline for centuries would be repaid with such a cruel betrayal, rendering her nothing more than a commodity to be consumed. In her mounting rage, she realized the dark history written in blood. She reflected on how her mother and all the Miko princesses of generations before her had been brutally deceived and murdered. They all died in loneliness and pain, merely to become stepping stones for the filthy ambitions of rulers hungry for absolute power, completely disregarding human values. Yotsuha's hands clenched so hard that her fingernails turned white. In a voice filled with the venom of hatred, she swore she would never forgive anyone involved in her mother's murder. She also fiercely cursed their foul plan to sacrifice Ayame. To her, their greed had surpassed the boundaries of sanity and must be paid back with a fitting retribution. Yotsuha reiterated that her life no longer held any value compared to her goal. As long as she could drag those traitors into destruction, she no longer cared whether she lived or died. She swore she would carry out every form of vengeance by whatever means necessary, even if it meant she had to use the darkest and most forbidden methods. In an exploding outburst of emotion, Yotsuha shouted loudly, as if offering her entire existence to the darkness. She surrendered her life, body, and soul to the great power before her. Filled with desperation and hope, she begged to be lent a power vast enough to crush her enemies and deliver a blood-soaked justice to them all. After such a fierce outburst of anger, the atmosphere inside the tower's grand room suddenly fell completely silent and tense. Only the sound of Yotsuha's panting breath could be heard, her body trembling slightly after pouring out her entire heart. The silence felt incredibly heavy, as if even the walls of the tower shared the suffering and deadly resolve just screamed out by the princess. Eli, who was still wearing the black cloak and standing there, looked completely shocked. he fell completely silent, transfixed by the courage and pain radiating from every single one of Yotsuha's words. He never expected that a girl who had always seemed so gentle could possess such a burning fire of vengeance and such a terrifying resolve to destroy everything for absolute revenge. Furthermore, what shocked Eli even more was when Light stood up as if he was about to do something. Shocked reactions could also be seen on the other characters present in the room. They appeared stunned and looked at one another, as if unable to believe, seeing Light suddenly take off his disguise mask, which was a sign that the profound resolve rising from within Yotsuha felt so real that it managed to stir empathy from Light. Then, after removing his disguise mask, Light stepped forward and asked Yotsuha in a serious tone. He wanted to make sure whether the oath she uttered was truly pure or just a momentary emotion. He questioned her back firmly, whether Yotsuha had truly thrown away her love for her own life and was ready to walk a bloody path to avenge her betrayed family. Yotsuha stared back, with eyes still wet with tears, but the radiance in her eyes showed an unshakable seriousness. Seeing the depth of that gaze, the figure finally responded. He stated that if those words truly came from the darkest depths of her heart, then this was no longer mere anger, but a very serious and irrevocable contract of fate. Light finally stepped forward and announced, in his name, Light, with full dignity. In front of Yotsuha, he made a very heavy promise, which was that he would bring about the perfect revenge the princess had been seeking all this time. Sample showing a system interface with an absurdly high, nonsensical level, namely level 9,999. He gave her a new hope that was far stronger than mere human emotion. Seeing the phenomenon of extraordinary power radiating from Light's figure, Yotsuha appeared highly shocked. Her eyes widened in disbelief, witnessing such a massive and unparalleled aura before her. Everything felt like a dream, yet the presence of that power provided a glimmer of conviction that she had finally found the right means to destroy the clan that had betrayed her family. There, Eli, who had already removed his black cloak, then Nemumu, then Gold, and two maids, whose names I don't know, who were inside the grand room simultaneously, fell silent. They bowed their heads solemnly as a form of respect for Light's power, and also for the dark agreement that had just been formed. The atmosphere became highly ritualistic, as if the entire room was witnessing the birth of a new destiny that would change the map of power in this world forever. From a back perspective, the tiny figure of Yotsuha could be seen standing firm facing Light. A very bright, golden light radiated from Light's body, illuminating the entire grand room all the way to its darkest corners. This sight created a dramatic contrast between a girl's despair and a god's power, ready to destroy everything for a promise of revenge. Light stood calmly and with full dignity in the center of that vortex of energy. He looked like a true ruler controlling everything. Around him, the other powerful characters appeared to bow or kneel, acknowledging his absolute authority. In the midst of that grandeur, Light looked at Yotsuha as if he were staring at the most valuable pawn that would change the course of the game. Yotsuha was temporarily dazed, like an idiot, seeing what was happening in the room, as if processing all the wonders and horrors before her. However, slowly, a strange smile appeared on her face. She let out a small chuckle, which sounded in stark contrast to the room's atmosphere. The sound of that laughter signified a profound shift in emotions, a transition from suffering to madness filled with hope. The feeling of suffering that had been weighing on Yotsuha's shoulders suddenly turned into a very loud and hysterical burst of laughter. She laughed as if she had just found the answer to life's most difficult riddle. With a resounding voice, she shouted that reality was indeed like that this world was indeed cruel, and the only way to survive was to become even crueler than the world itself. With eyes showing extreme determination and a hint of madness, Yotsuha looked at Light in a different way. She fully realized that Light was the figure destined by the universe all this time to help her. To her, Light was not just a savior, but a weapon of mass destruction that she needed to tear down the old order that had killed her mother and ruined her life. Yotsuha's shrill laughter filled every corner of the vast tower room. she laughed very loudly, releasing all the burdens of sanity that had been holding her back. The other characters in the room could only watch her in silence, transfixed seeing the transformation of the pure Miko princess into a figure full of bloodlust and terrifying joy in the shadows of revenge. Yotsuha then dropped herself and knelt in full obedience before Light. Her face beamed, showing a strange and eerie expression of happiness. She stated with full conviction and swore that she would follow Light anywhere. She felt she had found her new purpose, and she was ready to become a loyal servant as long as her revenge could be realized through Light's hands. In her heart, Yotsuha reaffirmed her unshakable oath unto death. As long as she could inflict a fitting amount of pain upon those who had deceived and murdered her mother and her predecessors, she would not hesitate for even a second to offer the entire remainder of her life. For her, the future no longer existed. What remained was only the present, which would be filled with the destruction of her enemies. With a facial expression full of joy, yet looking highly terrifying, Yotsuha looked up toward Light. She begged earnestly that Light would not hold back even a bit. She asked to be given an absolute revenge, a total destruction that would make her enemies beg for death as an escape from the pain she would inflict upon them all. Light looked down at the girl beneath him with a calm, unreadable gaze, then gave a cold counter-oath. He promised to carry out a revenge so perfect that Yotsuha would feel deeply satisfied and at peace from this moment on. That promise was not mere words, but a death sentence for anyone who had ever harmed the bloodline of the Miko princess. The story concludes with a very powerful narrative, depicting the complete transformation of the main character's persona. It is mentioned that the girl who was once gentle has now screamed like a vengeful Oni newly born into the world. Her gentleness has died, replaced by a new entity that lives for only one purpose, which is to see the world of traitors burn completely beneath her blood-stained feet. A quiet yet tense atmosphere enveloped the capital of Onijima country, precisely in the exclusive noble district. Inside the grand residence belonging to Mitsuhiko, the influential leader of the Shimobashira clan, two male figures, namely Mitsuhiko and Oboro, sat facing each other at a low table. The traditional Japanese room felt completely silent, adorned only by the sharp scent of incense, while they prepared to begin a secret meeting that would determine the fate of their grand plan. Oboro looked helpless, bowing deeply with an expression filled with pressure and deep regret. With a slightly trembling voice, he delivered a sincere apology to his interlocutor. He admitted his failure because up to this very second, his elite search unit had still not managed to find any bright spot regarding the whereabouts of Miko Princess Yotsuha and her younger sister, Ayame, who had mysteriously vanished. The man in front of Oboro did not show a shred of sympathy. In a firm and cold tone of voice, he directly cut off the conversation. He emphasized that the purpose of summoning Oboro to this place was not to hear complaints or administrative reports regarding the expansion of the search scope, which so far had only yielded 0 results. He demanded something more concrete than mere excuses for failure. Without wasting time, Mitsuhiko pulled out an object and placed it quietly on the wooden table in front of Oboro. The object looked like a sealed letter or official document. Oboro stared at the object with a furrowed brow, confusion clearly radiating from his face. In a questioning tone full of curiosity, he muttered softly, "What the hell is this, damn it?" Mitsuhiko gave an answer in a highly confident and authoritative tone. He explained that the object in front of Oboro was most likely a highly crucial message. Based on the intelligence they possessed, the letter was believed to have been sent directly by the Miko princess herself, Yotsuha, whom they had been painstakingly searching for all over the island. He continued his explanation that the letter without a clear sender's name arrived mysteriously at their residence this morning. No Shopee COD delivery courier was seen. The letter just appeared out of nowhere. To avoid wrong speculation, he then asked Oboro to immediately open and check the contents and handwriting in the letter himself to confirm the truth of the sender's identity before they took any further steps. Oboro nodded obediently and accepted the letter with a highly respectful hand movement, as if the object were a fragile heirloom. With the polite attitude characteristic of his nature as a clan leader, he stated that he would immediately read and examine every word in the letter to verify if this was truly news from the missing Miko princess. Oboro began to read the contents of the letter in a slow but clear voice. Uncle Mitsuhiko and Uncle Oboro, both of you, come to Mount Kijin tonight. Signed, the Miko princess of Onijima country, Yotsuha. The sentence was very short, yet contained a very heavy weight of command, as if the princess were openly challenging them to meet at that notoriously haunted and isolated location. After finishing reading, Oboro commented that the content of this letter felt very odd because it was too simple. There was no flowery introduction or formal etiquette usually mandatory for a Miko princess to use in an official letter. In a hesitant tone, he looked at Mitsuhiko in front of him and asked if they were truly certain that this rough handwriting stroke really belonged to the princess. Mitsuhiko provided reassurance with a firm nod. He stated that his side had conducted a deep analysis of the writing style and the energy left on the paper. Based on all forensic evidence and comparison with old documents, there was not a shred of doubt. The letter was indeed written directly by Princess Yotsua's hand. Even though the style felt sharper and fuller of anger than usual, Mitsuhiko, who had been listening all this time, now pondered in silence with a very serious and tense facial expression. His mind spun rapidly, trying to dissect the reason behind the Miko princess's reckless action. He wondered to himself, what is Yotsua actually planning? Why would a fugitive in hiding deliberately send a meeting invitation to the person pursuing her? Next, the narrative explained that the letter was found lying just like that, inside the heavily guarded area of the Shimobashira family residence. This triggered great doubt in their hearts. Logically, it made absolutely no sense for the Miko princess to sneak in alone past lines of elite guards and a high-level security system just to leave a letter and then leave again without being detected in the slightest. Mitsuhiko concluded that there must be another party helping the princess. If someone else delivered the letter, who is this helper figure capable of penetrating their defenses soundlessly? He began to question whether this was the work of the Kamijo family wanting to pit them against each other, and what exactly was their hidden intention by deliberately baiting the Shimobashira leaders to come out of their lair. Mitsuhiko then turned his body and cast a highly sharp gaze toward his interlocutor. The room's atmosphere grew hotter as he asked, in a tone demanding an honest and logical answer. He wanted to get another perspective to ensure they were not walking into a death trap. "What do you think, Oboro?" he asked in a deep voice, awaiting analysis from his partner. Oboro took a deep breath to calm himself before starting his analysis. He emphasized the first point that could not be denied. The identity of the letter's writer is authentic. Based on physical evidence, it really was the Miko princess who wrote it. However, this certainty was precisely the start of a bigger problem, because it indicated that the princess now possessed a highly brave and capable ally. Oboro continued that because this letter was delivered by another party, it is certain that an individual or a secret organization now stands firmly behind the princess. The existence of this third-party power changes their entire political constellation. The princess is no longer alone and weak. She is now backed by a mysterious power capable of infiltrating the heart of the Shimobashira clan's defenses. Although there is an organization helping, Oboro doubted their identity. He argued that it is highly unlikely the Kamijo family is behind all this. According to his analysis, the Kamijo family is a highly pragmatic and straightforward faction in their actions. A scenario using a mysterious invitation letter like this feels too convoluted for the Kamijo clan's working style, which usually prioritizes military strength. He explained his reasoning in more detail. If the Kamijo family were indeed protecting the princess and already knew about their evil plans, they wouldn't bother playing riddles. With the authority they possess, the Kamijo family would just mobilize a large army directly to arrest Mitsuhiko and all involved parties on charges of treason. Therefore, the party helping the princess must be someone else. Both of them realized that there was a highly powerful, mysterious figure accompanying the Miko princess right now. However, what made them feel uneasy was the motive behind all this. They still couldn't understand what that figure's true intention was, by deliberately inviting them to Mount Kijin. Was this a negotiation effort, or was there something far darker waiting for them in the darkness of that mountain? Oboro closed the long speculation with a very stern warning. With a sharp and cold gaze, he emphasized that they must prepare for the worst possibility. To him, this meeting at Mount Kijin was most likely a trap that had been very neatly designed to eliminate both of them at once on one silent night. Although aware that death might be lurking behind the risk of that trap, Oboro felt completely pushed into a corner by the existing situation. The loss of the princess was a fatal failure, and this letter was the only clue they had. He stated with a heavy heart that they actually had no other choice but to come to Mount Kijin, because not going meant losing the only opportunity to recapture the sacrifice. Oboro placed his hand firmly on top of the still open letter, as if locking their fate to that paper. In a heavy tone of voice, he explained that their current position was completely trapped. As long as the Miko princess and her sister had not been captured, their grand plan would always be on the brink of total failure. They could not possibly let this golden opportunity slip away just like that, even though death might be lurking. Mitsuhiko went silent for a moment, then he took a long, deep breath while closing his eyes tightly. His facial expression showed the resignation of a fighter who knows he is being forced into the opponent's game. He murmured softly, admitting that even though his inner heart refused, in the end, this dangerous way was indeed the only path left for them to turn around an increasingly difficult situation. The cameraman was tired and chose to shoot the majesty of Mount Kijin, whose peak was covered in eternal snow, standing arrogantly beneath a sky that was starting to darken. The narrative reinforced that this holy mountain was the location designated in the mysterious letter. The silence at the frozen mountain peak seemed to hold a dark secret, waiting for power-hungry people to walk into an invisible trap. Mitsuhiko began to consider the worst-case scenario with a cool head. In an arrogant tone, he threatened to deploy Kijin, their most terrifying secret weapon. He boasted that no matter how complex the trap prepared by the opposing party was, everything would easily be shattered to pieces once Kijin's destructive power was unleashed onto the battlefield to level everything. Mitsuhiko's mind kept spinning sharply. Even though he realized that this invitation was highly suspicious and smelled of a trap, he still saw it as a blessing. To him, this was the best moment to recapture the Miko princess, who had been highly slippery in her escape all this time. If they succeeded in capturing her here, then all obstacles blocking their ambitions would soon end in just one night. Hearing Mitsuhiko's resolve, Uncle Oboro bowed his head deeply as a form of absolute obedience to the strategy. He hid his doubts and stated that the step taken by Oboro was a very wise and brave decision. As a loyal subordinate, he was ready to fully support the attack, though deep in his heart, he felt something was very wrong with a situation that was too easy. However, Mitsuhiko then admitted to a major limitation in their power. He was actually highly reluctant to deploy Kijin unless absolutely pushed. He revealed a bitter fact that although they could direct the monster to a certain extent at present, their control was not yet perfect. Activating Kijin was a huge gamble that could turn back to attack themselves if they weren't careful. The hideous figure of the monster Kijin could be seen thrashing around in the darkness. Although its body had been bound with hundreds of giant iron chains reinforced by spells, the monster continued to rampage with an absurd amount of power. Great concern arose that if something unexpected happened to trigger its power, Kijin could grow too strong to be held by any chain and break free from their control. A cunning smile spread across Mitsuhiko's face, revealing his sharp fangs as if he himself were a monster. In a cold tone, he gave a final warning that they were walking on a very thin rope. If they were to lose control over Kijin, then all the hard work and blood they had sacrificed over the years would vanish just like that, disappearing like foam swallowed by waves in the vast ocean. Mitsuhiko stated his cruel resolve with a bloodthirsty glare. His main plan was to capture Yotsuya and Ayame alive to execute the forbidden art of subjugation. By turning both sacred bloodlines into living sacrifices, he was certain the control seal on Kijin would become perfect and absolute. To him, the lives of the two princesses were merely key tools to open the gates to an unmatched godlike power. Mitsuhiko immediately took over field command. He instructed Oboro to continue leading the search at another point, while he himself would prepare the best guard troops to set off for Mount Kijin. He also ordered that preparations to mobilize Kijin be made immediately as an anticipation of the worst scenario. All their war machines now began to move, heading toward a single meeting point that would determine the fate of the nation. The scene shifts to the rocky slopes of Mount Kijin. Mitsuhiko, along with his group of elite guards, had arrived at the designated meeting location. A cold mountain wind blew hard, sweeping across their cloaks. The sky up there had turned dark, leaving a pale moonlight, creating a highly tense atmosphere for anyone who dared to set foot on that holy ground filled with an aura of death. They stood on the edge of a large crater, surrounded by rows of torii gates that looked very old. One of the guards on scouting duty reported in a whispering voice that there were no signs of human presence or any activity in the area. The location looked completely empty and silent, as if the letter they received was just an empty joke from someone wanting to waste their time. Mitsuhiko observed the surroundings of the crater while murmuring softly. The promised meeting time had arrived, but the target they were waiting for had not yet shown themselves. Suspicion began to creep into his mind. Could they be played with? He feared that the letter was merely a diversionary tactic deliberately designed to lure chaos onto their side, while the princess fled even further. The night view at the mountain peak showed rows of torii gates standing stiffly on sharp rocks. Mitsuhiko's troops appeared on full alert in a defensive position, their hands firmly gripping their respective weapons. In the midst of the enveloping darkness, every sound of scraping stones or gust of wind made their hearts beat fast, waiting for the development of an increasingly uncertain and tense situation. Suddenly, the image focus highlights the mouth section of a figure wearing a highly majestic, traditional Miko attire. Her red lips appeared to move slowly, starting to form words. The figure finally spoke, breaking the silence of the night with a highly clear tone. The voice did not sound like a scream, but rather a vibration that possessed a magical power to travel through the air. The voice suddenly resonated with immense grandeur in all directions, as if the mountain itself were speaking. In a highly authoritative and full of love, yet firm tone, the voice addressed the crowd. Its opening line read, "O my beloved people of Onijima country." This made the atmosphere around the mountain change instantly, bringing an aura of authority possessed only by a true leader. Mitsuhiko, Oboro, and the entire guard force were shocked out of their minds. They snapped out of their alert positions, their eyes widening large, searching for the source of the voice that suddenly appeared out of nowhere. With a tense and disbelief expression, they turned in all directions, questioning how it was possible for the princess's voice to be heard so clearly and loudly as if she were standing right in each of their ears. At the foot of the mountain, the villagers also heard the same voice. They immediately recognized that it was the voice of Miko Princess Yotsuha, whom they highly respected. People came out of their houses with astonished faces, asking each other in a tone full of wonder. They called for everyone to immediately stop their activities and listen carefully to the message the princess wanted to convey to her nation. Mitsuhiko's troops at the mountain peak began to be struck by overwhelming panic. Princess Yotsuha's voice seemed to echo directly inside their heads, penetrating their eardrums and creeping into their consciousness. The soldiers began to scream in panic, accusing one another and wondering from which direction the voice actually came. Fear of a supernatural power they did not understand began to crush their combat mentality. In the midst of that information chaos, suddenly one of the guards at the outermost position screamed hysterically. He called out Mitsuhiko's and Oboro's names in a voice cracking with fear. With hands trembling violently, he pointed toward the dark sky above them. His deathly pale facial expression indicated that he was seeing something far beyond even the wildest human imagination. Mitsuhiko and Oboro simultaneously looked upward. Instantly, their faces turned deathly pale, as white as the snow covering the mountain peak. Their mouths gaped, unable to utter words due to the extraordinary shock. What they witnessed up there was no longer a human trap, but a phenomenon signifying the return of an ancient power long forgotten. As it turned out, the sky that was previously empty had now been filled by a very large swarm of dragons flying in a highly tight formation. Someone at the back line of the troops screamed in a contagious, panicky tone, "The swarm of dragons has arrived!" Those mythical creatures that were supposed to exist only in legends were now real, flapping their massive wings and creating a whirlwind around the peak of Mount Kijin. The view from the ground perspective shows hundreds, even thousands of dragons flying across the sky, obscuring the bright light of the full moon. Their giant shadows sweep across the ground surface, creating a highly tense and intimidating sight for Mitsuhiko's troops. Thousands of those dragon scales glisten under the starlight, showing that this arriving force is no mere illusion, but a real combat army. As it turns out, the dragons did not come empty-handed. They carry large wooden litters on their backs containing ranks of fully armed troops. This aerial attack formation is highly organized, surrounding the entire mountain peak area from all directions. Mitsuhiko's troops now realize that they are not waiting for a single person, but are instead surrounded by an utterly impossible war armada. Someone among the crowd of troops notices a leader figure standing gallantly atop the foremost and largest dragon. He points with a trembling finger, wondering in a hesitant and fearful tone about who this extraordinary figure truly is, capable of riding the leader dragon. The aura radiating from that figure is so powerful that it makes the legs of the soldiers on the ground feel weak. Atop that giant dragon stands Princess Miko Yotsuha in her ceremonial attire, accompanied by Light, Mei, and Eli, known as the Witch of the Great Tower, who look highly formidable. They all look down at Mitsuhiko's troops below, with an expression that is very calm, yet carries an extraordinarily deep intimidation. There is no more fear on Yotsuha's face. All that remains is the authority of a ruler who has come to reclaim her rights.